What happens in property settlement when serious illness is part of the story? Were you caring for your partner through an illness during the marriage or de facto relationship? What if you spent a lot of time caring for your ex? What if you're the one who is very unwell? What if someone has cancer or ongoing medical bills? And what if a doctor has told you only have a few moments left to live? Health and divorce is very emotional because it is your life, but it also plays into property settlement and a very complex part of family law, because you're not just dividing assets, you're dealing with also the uncertainty, the fear, and the need to continue getting the treatment or support that you need. So in today's episode, Mum and I are going to talk about and unpack the health issues that can affect your property settlement in Australia. We're going to look at what the court considers as contributions and how future needs factors like illness and disability and reduced earning capacity and medical expenses can play into your percentages. We're going to talk about how to prove your medical issues, because it's not enough to just simply say, I'm unwell. Please remember that this is general education only. Mum's not your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. But we thought that this would be a good episode for anyone if illness has shaped your relationship or part of your dynamic. This episode is really going to help you start to understand how the law approaches it and what it might or might not mean for you in settlement. Welcome up.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everyone. My word, Rose, that case, that whole statement shows how broad health goes. I wouldn't have thought there was that much to talk about. And you missed one, and that is if someone is injured by a partner during a relationship, how it impacts them going forward.
Let's definitely talk about that. But to be mum, I don't know if many people know this, but I'm an endo champion for Endometriosis Australia. I've been helping them raise funds and spread awareness because I myself, as you know, have been through hell with endo. And, the medical expenses rack up. They do. There's a lot. You're seeing all sorts of specialists and surgeries. And so I didn't actually know in my divorce that made any difference. I didn't know. And it was only till you explained something to me, I was like, wait, I didn't realize that. So, there's things that people might not even think about. And the shoe can be on the other foot where it's your partner who has all the medical problems. But the weird thing is that you've started to teach me is there's a difference in how sick as opposed to a bit sick. Because when cancer comes into the equation, it can actually completely change the way it's dealt with. Let's get into it.
Hello, I'm Laura, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom.
Just give us a quick, brief rundown of you identify the property pool.
Okay. Brace yourself. I'll try to be quick. This might be one and done ever.
Okay.
First of all, you identify the property pool. Secondly, you then have a look at the contributions each person has made, financial and non-financial contributions, and at before, during and after the relationship. And the third step is to have a look at your current and future circumstances. And that's where the court says, if we divide the property pool on the basis of contributions, how are these people going to be, say, 10 years down the track? And then the last issue is just the judge running a ruler over it again to see if it's just and equitable or fair and reasonable.
You're so smart, Mum. That's a really good summary. And the reason why health becomes relevant in these steps is in step 2, contributions, and that's financial and non-financial, and that's things like caregiving, like that's your true. Contribution during the marriage, and we're going to talk about that. Then the other one is if the health issues come into future needs, obviously, because if you're like someone who needs kidney dialysis or, an ongoing treatment that's expensive and problematic, they're going to not say, okay, we'll just do 50-50 split because that'll be fine if the other person's fit as a fiddle, because surely they're going to need a little bit more money to survive.
Yes, and you've got to show that.
Okay, and we'll get to that. But let's start with, if you've cared for a sick partner for years.
Right.
Does caring for a sick partner, de facto or married, count as a contribution? Yes or no?
It sort of does. Okay, so in the marriage, it's not a business, right? It's a partnership. It's a relationship. And you do what you do for your ex. If, however, they end up getting a personal injuries claim in dollars, then there are elements of that which are being paid to the person who's ill because the other parent did the parenting and the other person cared for them. That's called a Griffiths and Kokemeyer case. You don't need to know about that, but that's the word. But that doesn't come up that often. So in a marriage, in a relationship, it's each does the best you can to the best of your capacity.
This is looking after a sick partner. So you're saying during the marriage, it kind of all just goes into the wash. But if you continue to look after them after separation, does that count?
I don't think I've come across that very often.
I have. So
Have you?
we've been hearing of people whose exes have severe depression or they're severely unwell and they can't move out, so they're staying separated. And does that count at all?
Kind of, I think it does. What's caught me there is the separated under one roof, right? Because once they're gone, then I can understand that might be an issue for some people.
Yeah.
But, you need to be clear in that case about separation.
Yeah.
When was the separation date? Right, we're all under one roof and I know you can't do things, so, but we're separated and I think that needs to be documented. Maybe it would give them a small percentage more.
Okay. So you're saying that if there was someone with a serious illness and you had to reduce your work hours, if you're married or if you were de facto, that doesn't matter. All right.
No.
What if you sacrificed your career because of it? Doesn't count?
No, it doesn't. It's because of the nature of the relationship.
Okay.
In a relationship, you take the good with the bad,
What if you were the person who did everything in the house and you were caregiving? You did everything. Does that count towards your contributions?
I think you get your reward in heaven, but not in the family court.
So what the vibe you're giving me here, Mum, is if it happened during the marriage or de facto relationship, then it kind of just all washes out in the wash.
Yeah. Remember my polythene pipe I used to talk about?
Yes.
Where the court looks at what goes in, but during the marriage, when the wires go inside that pipe, and they say that's part of the vicissitudes of life, or as we call it, swings and roundabouts, and they only look at the extra money that went in.
What the heck is vicissitudes?
Vicissitudes are the ups and downs of life.
There we go. We've all learnt a new word today, or am I the only person?
Don't ask me to spell it.
That'd be good for Scrabble.
Okay, the judges have used that expression in the past. That's why I use it, because it's in the cases. But yeah, ups and downs, swings and roundabouts.
All right, then let's move on to the one you're more interested in talking about. What if you're the sick partner? What if you've got a serious illness and you've had to reduce your earning capacity? You've got tons of medical expenses. And so let's talk about that before we go on to life expectancy. But what happens there?
Yeah. So, of course, the court won't take your word for it. So you're talking about future needs now?
Yes. Let's pretend the court, because we're going to get into how to prove that later. Let's pretend the court takes your word for it. You've given them the proof.
They've accepted. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the court will look at what the likely impact on you going forward is and award you a greater share of the property pool, usually, to assist with that. The way to get that amount right and make sure it's in front of mind of the court is to add up what the likely expenses are going forward and make it live for the judge.
Right. So that would go into future needs, not contributions.
Section 79.5, current and future circumstances.
So can you explain what that is?
Okay, so when I talked about the court works out the property pool, who contributed what is Section 79.4 in marriage, and it's 90, I think, SM for de facto. And then Section 79.5 is where you find the current and future circumstances, where the court makes adjustments to contributions. And so you're in that space now. We're talking about your future needs. So you would probably, if the court accepts that your illness is ongoing, that it's expensive, that it impacts your ability to earn going forward, then you could expect a greater adjustment to you to assist with that. Usually in percentages. So if you've got a massive property pool, that might be a lot of money. If it's a small property pool, it might not be much.
Okay. So, all right, let's go through some different scenarios for this. So you're sick.
I'll brace myself.
What if you can't work anymore? You've had a car accident or you're just unable to work. It's not possible. How does that affect the property pool?
So the court would look at the fact that you need what they call spousal maintenance. and what the Americans call alimony. So it means some sort of support going forward. And there's two ways the court can order that. One is by making a lump sum adjustment to you by way of spousal maintenance going forward. And that normally comes under Section 79(5). Then they can also, if there's just not the money there, but you can't manage, they can order that payment be made but from the other person to you, say on a periodic basis, like once a month or once a fortnight. And they can do that if and only if the person who's got to pay can afford it and the person who needs the money, the ill person, has the need, can't satisfy their needs from their own endeavours.
Right.
And from their own effort.
Right. Okay. So that's something that the court can order for you at the... What happens to people who are currently struggling with their medical expenses and their ex is just cutting them off dollar-wise in the meantime, during property negotiation? Can you do something about that?
Yes. Okay. So that's when you can bring an interim application, they call it, or interlocutory application. But
that's a terrible word as well.
I know, but that's what they call them.
What a way to win Scrabble.
Yeah. So if you've got an application already running in the court, you can put in an interim application and have the court make an order in the short term for you to tide you over until such time as you have property settlement and they can have a proper look at it all. Okay. So you can do that.
Okay. What if you've been told or your ex has been told you only have a year left to live or you've only got a little while to go and you're not going to be living for the next 10 years?
Yes.
What happens there? Because we do get that question a lot.
Yes.
Which is horrible. It's a question.
Yeah, and it has come up a lot in cases through the years. So what the court does there is when they're assessing your future needs, like when they say, we've worked it out on contributions, now what adjustment do we make going into the future? If you have a life-limiting illness and it's documented, then brutally, I have to say you don't have the same amount of future needs as someone who would live until their 80s, say. So then that can sometimes reduce a person's argument, and mainly the person who survives would get more of the property pool. But the person who is ill, if the court has started proceedings, would at least have their contributions taken into account and then adjusted one way or another in relation to their future needs. It's a thing often forgotten by people.
So in other words, if it's an ongoing illness but it's not life-threatening, then you may get more property pool because of the medical expenses that you need to support it. But if it's life-challenging and you may not end up alive later, then you actually will get less of the property pool because you won't need it.
I have to say, it's a very stringent, very strong test that the court applies to that.
That's right.
Yeah, so it has to be quite pronounced.
Okay, so that is something to talk to your lawyer about. If these
it's in
things
your
going
case.
on, you need to raise them. Okay, so that's impacting future needs. Things that you keep saying 79(5).
5, yes, which is your current and future circumstances.
So the kind of things that the court looked back in that is their age.
Yes.
So age, if you're closer to the average age where people fall off their perch, are you again less likely to?
No, not
so that
really.
Doesn't matter. So
not
if one
really.
person, if you married a 20-year-old and you're 80 and you get a divorce,
yes.
But would the 20-year-old get more property percentage because they're 80, or is that they don't do that?
I haven't seen that happen because let's not forget the 80-year-old probably has a zero working life, whereas the 20-year-old has their whole life ahead of them to accumulate savings, accumulate superannuation and bring money in.
Oh, yeah, so age, okay, and then health,
state of health.
which we just talked about, and then what you've just said, earning capacity. So, so it's not just health that they look at, all of these little levers, care responsibilities, which I guess is who's going to be looking after the kids, your financial resources, if someone's got a trust or if they've got parents that are wealthy, they're throwing the money. So those kind of things are looked at as well as health.
I think, more than any of the other courts, I reckon scales are appropriate. Those legal scales you see, you put something on one side and it's like, a bit more for that person, but then you find something put on, back to even. And so it goes up and down for each of you, depending on the circumstances and the weight that the court gives to each of those things.
Okay, but can I just clarify, and this is just general, everyone's different. If you are unwell and you've got issues, that can give you a percentage adjustment, even though there'll be a percentage adjustments and sometimes it ends up being the same. But yes, that could give you a percentage adjustment.
And that's why the court uses the term weight, I think. I still think of myself. It depends what weight the court gives to it. If you say, I can't do my job anymore because my bunions are killing me and I'm going to have to get a sit-down job, the court probably go, meh.
Really? Rude.
Yeah, get another job. Get a sitting-down job.
All right, so we'll go on to the proof bit in a minute. Okay. But what about ongoing medical bills? And I know we haven't even brought up kids because, my goodness, bless all their cotton socks. Kids can cost a lot of money when it comes to medical stuff, especially if you've got, kids with ADHD, autism, things, all the neurodivergency, and any other medical issues that could be going on. So that costs a lot. So private health insurance is something that people may have to continue paying if they've got themselves or the kids need specialist treatments. I mean, has it actually been a heart specialist, like $730? Ongoing medication, if it's not on disability modifications, and all of those, and carers, getting a carer. So what if you need your medical bills to keep being paid after settlement? I know we talked about during, and is that where you talk about what you were just saying before?
About the wife maintenance or husband maintenance, spousal maintenance.
So that can happen after settlement has happened?
Oh, yes. Ongoing child maintenance and ongoing spousal maintenance. Those are the two things that can keep going. And as we know in this country, child maintenance is by and large dealt with by the Child Support Agency, Services Australia, but the spouse can continue to get ongoing interim, periodic payments, or they may get a bigger chunk of the property pool. And the court goes, there you go, off your pop. You should be able to manage on that. I mean, the court can't create money where there isn't any for a property pool. And they'll often look at an application for long-term spousal maintenance if there just isn't enough money to give a lump sum. Because by and large, Australians like to cut ties, and there's not the appetite in Australian women usually to get spousal maintenance. They want to be out, one and done.
We've seen this new tricky trick. It's not new, but it seems to be where these really wealthy people, they squirrel away their money. They say the business is worth $0. There's a tax set of $50,000, but they're still driving Porsches and living in mansions and going on ski trips in business class or first class rides to Aspen and stuff. So is that a situation where the court will go, you've got no money, but this person needs ongoing medical care, so you can pay spousal maintenance if you could afford all these other things? Is that where they would do it?
That's where they do it. They look at the capacity to pay, not whether when you add up their holidays and everything, they've got any money left over. Okay. And then their priority is then to care for you, because otherwise you may end up on a disability pension, your ex, and the court, being a Commonwealth court, is keen to protect the Commonwealth government's public purse, they call it. So they're not wanting to have to pay a pension to you if there's a wealthy ex-partner who can afford to pay for you. I should address here, Rosie, the NDIS, National Disability Insurance Scheme. Lots of people are able to access that, and I think it's just so good. However, don't try and use it as a defence against having to pay more for your children or your ex, because the NDIS provides a different kind of support. It's not the necessities of life.
Right. So if you've got an ex who's saying, no, I'm not going to help you pay for all of that, you've got the NDIS. That doesn't. Okay. So let's just quickly wrap up. So if you need your medical bills for your kids or for yourself to continue being paid after settlement, the court, what you've said is the court considers reasonable future expenses. You need to have those needs shown by evidence. And the goal, of course, as you've said at the start, has to be just and equitable. So
and equitable. Yeah.
Not everybody, no one's going to have the same, and it's not automatic, is it? You don't they don't just go, here you go. So but you need to remember in your negotiations, at mediation, etc., that this be an outcome.
Yep. And you need to prove that disability. And when you show your costs and expenses and make the case for what you're up for going forward, the court's not going to usually make an order that you have to go cap in hand to your ex and ask her to give you money for your legal fees. They will put it as an amount per week. or per month and make an order that way. And that order, if they make an order that such and such pays such and such a sum of X number of dollars per month by deposit into her bank account, that's what happens, or his bank account, this. You can also register your spousal maintenance agreements. And I think you'd have to leave off by paying into the bank account, but you can register them with the Child Support Agency, and they will use their mechanisms for collecting child support to collect your spousal maintenance payments. And also spousal maintenance payments may be finite. They may not be forever and ever. They'll end if you get remarried. Sometimes if there's another relationship.
Oh, really? So if you get remarried, your spousal maintenance for this kind of thing could stop?
Yeah, like the periodic payments. You don't have to give any of your lump sum back.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's interesting.
So, okay, so I know we've talked about it a little bit, but just have a look at the difference between how the court looks at short-term illnesses versus long-term illnesses. So if someone's got a temporary health issue, and let's face it, most people after divorce have a temporary health issue, and that is you are your mind is scrambled. You are depressed, you are high anxiety. Some people have PTSD, but that's not temporary. But there's some things that are temporary illnesses. Maybe you get Ross River fever. I'm not a medical person. But then there's permanent disability or permanent disease, chronic illnesses like endo. So, Mum, what's the difference? How does a court deal with a temporary health issue where you might be just completely out, not able to work, get over it, as opposed to someone who's got a permanent one?
Okay. I think the best cases or the best situation to look at here is to draw an analogy.
Need to start doing your disclosure but have no idea where to start? Feeling overwhelmed about mediation coming up? Or just trying to deal with negotiating with a manipulative ex? Then you need to go to thedivorcecourse.com.au to go to the free resources section where you can get a mediation checklist, a disclosure checklist, a word salad, read a letter like a pro checklist, and also a before you go checklist. Get ahead of the game and be organised and ready, as this handy checklist, along with the accompanying episodes of the podcast, will be perfect for you. All you need to do is go to thedivorcecourse.com.au and go to the free resource section and download the free checklists today.
To draw an analogy between when someone needs spousal maintenance to retrain for a different job, what they do then is they say, look, I need spousal maintenance for 4 years. I need this much money a year. And at the end of it, I'll be okay and I'll have a better job and I can work. With your short-term illness, you may have had a surgery and you may be in recovery. So you need to show the court, look, I need support for this long and it'll be this much a week, and then I will be recovered by then and able to get another job. So you could put a finishing date on it.
Gotcha.
When you've got a chronic illness, then it is going to could permanently affect your ability to earn. Then the court may not put an end date on that periodic spousal maintenance.
Okay.
I was just listening to an interesting appeal case, actually, in a court where it was only reported in the last couple of days, where the husband was paying spousal maintenance for, it looks like, for years and years. I haven't read the case properly. And he wanted to get an order to stop having to make the payments. But he stopped making the payments first. Then he brought the application and he had difficulties, and with the court saying, you're not already following the orders, so, you can't come here with dirty hands, so to speak. And so I haven't read the whole thing, but there was discussion about stay. But clearly that was one where they thought the person's capacity to pay was going to be ongoing, and they thought that the other person's need was going to be ongoing. And so they made a very long, open-ended order. Do you know they often do it if there's just not enough in the property pool?
So in other words, if it's temporary health issue or a permanent one, you could get a settlement with more percentage instead if there's enough in the property pool.
Yes. Okay. And sometimes people get a lump sum for more going forward and still get a periodic maintenance claim as well. So,
all right. What about if you are in remission? Does that make a difference?
Look, usually medical reports come into play about your condition, and it may be a single expert. I have had the very awful experience of one of my clients having been very unwell was in remission and had to be examined by another doctor chosen by the other person to make sure they were really getting better, which was just humiliating. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's how you'll deal with that. If you've got the evidence, you say I'm in remission, they say, oh, you know what? That doctor's your friend. They've been treating you for years and years. I want an independent witness. And so they may trot out whatever specialty they need to examine you and make a report.
Okay. And I know we've talked about the terminal diagnosis. Again, just to clarify, if it's a terminal one, then you're less likely to get a larger percentage of the property pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did one case years ago where everybody but the person who was actually dying seemed to understand that she was going to pass, but she denied it. My client wouldn't put her through that process, and he wouldn't wait for the property settlement either, and in the end, they didn't make an adjustment and the person passed. But, so it's a very delicate thing. If you've been with someone for years, you don't want to put them through that.
No, I think it must be really hard for either partner, even if you hate each other's guts. I think living with someone, people make jokes about wanting their exes to be hit by buses. I don't, but I know people make those jokes. I guess the reality, if you've created a life with them in the past, it obviously messes you up. It's a weird, conflicting feeling that people must go through. So let's just quickly wrap over, Mum. So you're basically saying the court looks at the prognosis. They need evidence. You just described something. We're about to get into some more there. Speculating is not enough. And really, from the tale that you just told about that case, you don't have to follow these rules if you care about each other enough to try and make this work. I mean, could a possibility be you offer spousal maintenance to them until they pass so that they're not just left floundering?
And you could offer spousal maintenance and not say when it ends, because obviously if a person passes, you could do that.
Or unless they go into remission or something?
Yes, those are just in terms of technicalities. Going into remission, as we've just seen, is a very grey area, and the court would want a more precise thing than that. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you prove a medical condition? What kind of things have you used in the past that your client has a medical condition?
The first thing I do is approach their current doctors or psychologists for a report, right? Then you are required to disclose them to the other side if you want to use them in court ultimately. The other side will either go, yeah, that's right, she's always had that sore foot, or what? No, that doesn't apply. It's not really, no. They're just putting it on. And so if that's what they feel and they don't want to accept that report, then they may require you to be examined by someone else independently, someone you both agree to, and you go off and get examined.
This is instead of evaluation where you agree on a valuer and they go assess a house, you agree on a doctor to evaluate your health.
It's not that weird though, because we send everyone off to a single expert witness with children for a family report. So what the court is going, I think what they must be thinking, if I can give the whole court a personality, the court says, you say that, but where's the independent evidence? And I'm not a doctor. I need someone who's out of this to tell me what I need to know about you two, because you two are telling different stories and I can't choose. And that's the same with valuers, and that's the same with the family report writers.
So really, you need your medical reports, this letters, diagnosis confirmations, treatment plans, prognosis statements, evidence of medical costs. You can go through and list out all your medications and all your specialist appointments. Evidence of work limitations. Does that help?
It's tricky, but if you've got it, those things that you've mentioned, often the things that are required for a person to be able to access disability payments in Australia, right? And if you are on a disability benefit in Australia, that probably, or in and of itself, constitute the evidence.
Well, that process is a nightmare, all those forms and everything you have to go through. So you're right, that's the government checking it and saying that. So that itself is good.
And I must hasten to add here that the fact that you're getting the disability payment does not mean that your ex therefore doesn't have to pay you any money, because the court will ignore any money coming from any means-tested income or pension from the Commonwealth Government. Again,
Have you ever had anyone investigated that they're pretending they're sick, and then there's private eyes stalking around getting photos of them partying at a disco? Does that happen? Because what if your ex is telling a load of crap and they're friends with doctors and it's all just pretend?
Here's the thing. So if you're claiming workers' compensation or some insurance, I know, I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
The one I saw was not very good at his job because I saw him running around filming people, and I reported him to a policeman as I was walking into court, and I thought it was something to do with the family law case. And I said, I'd gone down there. The policeman came back and said, "Oh, thanks for telling us, ma'am. Let's just say they're not very good at their job." And it was obviously covert surveillance. But so of course those things can happen. They're extreme lengths to go to.
So the irony is, and we haven't even touched on it, but we have talked about it in another episode, is when your ex is trying to say you have a medical condition and you're an unfit parent. I mean, and usually it's mental health condition.
Yes.
So my ex is crazy. They don't love me anymore, so they must be crazy.
Yes.
Even though I've let them look after the children 100% of the time now that we're getting separated, I don't trust after the children anymore. So is it just the reverse then? You've got to pretty much prove that you're not crazy?
No, because you're not the one trying to seek a payment or anything from the court. The person who alleges that you are crazy to get more time with the children, for instance, they're going to be wanting to establish it. You can say, no, I'm not. And there it may lie. Sometimes a family report will say, I really think that person needs to be psychiatrically assessed. And if that's what happens, then off you go and get psychiatrically assessed. But I don't think you have psychiatrists at 20 paces where you send them off, they send you off. And, that's not helpful. And it's quite a controlling thing to do to a person.
I do think there's some coercive controlling aspects to that, especially they'll go, I can hire a private eye to investigate to see if my ex has this. That's another way I can continue to stalk them. So there are all these elements that I can see these narcissistic manipulative types go, I'll use that legal abuse. I'll use that legal abuse.
Yes.
But that's for another day. What if both parties have health issues? What if they're both have...
You drag out your scales again and you weigh up their issues.
What if one is sick? Say your ex is really sick. You have a trust with $7 million in it. What happens then?
Yeah, so need is dollars. They have to show that they need the money and they can't manage themselves into the future. If they have a trust and it's only a discretionary trust, and you've got plenty.
What if the separation happened, they get sick? So what if you broke up?
Yes.
Then they got really sick, but you haven't got your property settlement yet. What happens?
Or even if you have had your property settlement in time.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So if you separate, right, because you were married and because you have an obligation, if you've got capacity and they've got a need.
What if you separated?
Yep.
What if you separated, you had property settlement, and then they get sick?
Yes. As long as the spousal maintenance wasn't addressed in the orders that says 0, if they've got so much property that they don't need it, that your liability for your ex, if they are injured, is ongoing until the court makes an order that nobody's going to pay anyone's spousal maintenance. Or if an order says this is an order to which Section 77A applies, it's just a technical thing in there, and of the money that this person's getting for property settlement, $40,000 of it is for spousal maintenance, right? So that might be, okay, good, they've got their spousal maintenance. No, what they've done, you can go back to court after the time limits are up and change your spousal maintenance claim. It isn't a one and done like property is.
Right. So if you've got spousal maintenance in your property order, then they can go back.
Yeah, if you've made an amount for spousal maintenance. And if you haven't made an amount for spousal maintenance.
So you need to probably put $0 spousal maintenance.
No, because if you put let's say we say of the money that they're getting, $40,000 is spousal maintenance. All that does is when they come looking for money for you for spousal maintenance, you can point to that and the judge will say to them, what did you do with that $40,000? Oh, okay. Yep. All right. We'll order periodic. So it'll be month to month or week to week payments after that. So it's a very grey area. The only way you can really get out of spousal maintenance, I think, is in a very well drafted binding financial agreement.
Wow.
And it's got to be well drafted. And one of the other cases I was listening to this morning was a financial agreement that got overturned. And the husband in the case was suing his lawyers because it didn't work. And they only found out, I think it was several years after they got back together again. Sorry, they got together, and separated.
That's why you don't like binding financial agreement or financial agreement.
No, it's right. It's good.
If anyone's weighing that up, go listen to our episode, Consent Orders versus Binding Agreements, to see, what things to think about. Now, we've got to wrap this up. Basically, what you're saying is every case is different and it's all based on different facts. And just because you've got a health issue, it doesn't mean you get more. It depends more on the contributions over the relationship.
Yes, but and your
ongoing
maybe
needs.
On that, ongoing needs. I think that the amount for you for illness isn't taken from contributions. It's dealt with when you get into the Section 79.5, which is your future needs.
Yeah. And on top of that, you've mentioned many times, if there's no money there, they can't really give you anything. So it's also the financial capacity to help pay.
Yes. And it might be they say you give this person this much money out of your wages ongoing. And we don't have time to properly explore this in this episode, Laura. But there is now an amendment to the Family Law Act that says that the court will have a look at any family violence that happened during the relationship. And that has an impact on how much. If it made your contributions significantly harder, then you would get a bigger share in terms of contributions. And it may flow over into future needs if you have an ongoing injury or illness as a result.
All right.
So it's a big topic.
Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, things that we get sent all the time. So this is Mum on her toes, rapid fire. Hope you had your Weet Bix this morning, Mum. What if you separated because of the illness? Does that affect property in any way?
No.
Okay. What if the illness developed after separation? We've talked about that.
Yep. No difference.
What if one party refuses to get treatment? Do you still have to pay if they refuse to get treatment? Extra?
That would be a grey area. That would depend. Like if you've got a back injury and there's an operation that could fix it, that might be one thing. But if you've got a mental health issue and you're resisting things, I don't think the court has the power to give any more property in that situation or deny property in that situation.
Okay. What if there's life insurance? Wouldn't that be enough to cover all that sort of stuff?
Most life insurance these days is drop-dead insurance. You only get
what about TB?
Total permanent disability or incapacity. Always look at that. If your ex is ill, just always check and see that they haven't put a claim in. I suggest when you send the superannuation information forms to their super fund, have a look and see if they've got a component there for incapacity. They may have income protection insurance as well, and those things all need to be looked at.
And if they're getting a big lump sum of that or they're getting all of that, does that mean you don't have to give them as much property?
Yeah, you can that's right. And you can put your hand up for some of it. And if they've got a personal injuries claim and you've been caring for the person.
Okay. And for our grey divorces, what if superannuation is the only asset? Does it get divvied up an extra percentage for help?
Oh, yes. It just gets treated. Bevan says it's treated the same way as any other property.
So the key takeaways that we've done really fast and gone through a very big topic, but this is to get you thinking. This is to give you some ideas to talk to your lawyer about. This is to really get your head around, maybe I didn't realize this. So it's matter. Caregiving caregiving matters, but you don't think it matters that much if it's
in the marriage.
Yeah. Evidence matters.
Yes.
And contributions and future needs are separate assessments. So it doesn't split. That's step 2 and step 4, as Mum talked about at the beginning. And the court is always looking at, is it just and equitable? So it's just because you've got all these medical things doesn't mean the other person goes without. Like, to be fair, if you're going through your property settlement right now and they're going to mediation, perhaps, Mum, they should be bringing their evidence.
Yes. You'd hate to have a mediation fail because you go, and of course, my asthma's so bad I haven't been able to work. And then the other side goes, that's not right, you're better. So you're better to have the documents there and nail that argument then and there in mediation.
And so if you are organised, you've got your evidence, if you haven't started property settlement yet, but you are unwell, this is the time to start getting that information. If your ex is unwell or you haven't separated yet and they're unwell, try and get some information and some documented evidence so you can get your head around those things. But in our course, we do take you through the different contributions to consider and the different future needs. Health is just one of many.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do want help with that, you can go on our waitlist to join our course in the future. We're closed now, but that is an option for you. But Mum, I know we've been talking very clinically about this and we've been giggling a little bit and I feel a bit bad for that. But look, I have never had a terminal thing, but how health, I look at it as like a really heavy backpack, invisible backpack you have to wear every day, full of rocks.
Darling.
No one sees it. I mean, if you've got a broken leg, you've got a broken leg. People will give you all the sympathy in the world and they understand. But if it's something people can't see, those kind of illnesses, the chronic illnesses, it's so hard to deal with. And then you add on top of that, going through property settlement or divorce and having to prove this is how sick I am or this is how much money it costs. It's another job that you have to go through. And we want to give you big cuddles and let you know that we're proud of you. If you're listening to this, it means you're paying attention and getting what's fair. And if you've got an ex who's going through an illness and you're struggling with emotionally how to cope with that because you probably maybe might hate them or, you know, you're angry at them for what they've done and now they've got this. And so you've got this whole mental thing. Should you go back and help them? Have you got guilt issues? There's all these things that are dealing with it. It's a big mush mess. And I want to say to you guys, we know that this is hard, but you can do hard things. And you can get through this. Mum, it is very emotional is what I'm trying to say, but really when it comes down to family court and property settlement and mediation, all that, it just comes down to the facts. Sadly.
It does. And on your cushion for today.
Yes, Mum, what is on the cushion for today?
I want you to have be loud. Be loud because these often are silent illnesses. Your broken leg, everyone can see it and there's an end date. But your backpack of endometriosis, be loud about it.
Yeah.
Let everyone know.
And don't be ashamed. It's okay. It's okay. No. And look, it does feel horrible that just your parenting's being scrutinized, your health is being scrutinized, your mental health is being scrutinized. But all of these factors combined, it's a temporary thing. You can get through this. And let's make a promise to yourself that if you are the one with the illnesses, be loud and make sure that gets taken into account because I have heard and seen where it just gets washed over like it's nothing. It's no big deal. They don't, but they don't know what you go through. And then one of the things that you've said in the past is right in the life of you looks like.
Yes.
Do you have to go and get special medication? Do you have to stay in bed or go back to bed at midday to have a rest? Do you have to go and see 7 different physios? And like, what is it that makes your day extra hard?
One of the very powerful things one lady explained to me that when I put the fitted sheet on the bed, I have to lie down for 5 minutes. You know, you need that. Be loud.
Make it live and be loud. All right, Mum, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everyone for listening. We're seeing some great reviews. Don't forget to review and subscribe. We do call out 1 review a month to get a phone call with Mum. If that was you last week, please make sure you email us at thedivorcecourspodcast@gmail.com and we will see you all again next week. Hang in there, guys. You've got this.
Bye, Laura. Bye, everyone. Love you, darling.
Love you.
Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.